The hand that grabbed my wrist belonged to a dead man. At least, that's what I thought in the half-second before I turned around. Because no living wolf would touch me. Not here. Not at the mating ceremony where I stood like a stain on sacred ground. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning, an hour earlier, when I still had the luxury of hoping this night wouldn't destroy me. The blood moon hung low and swollen over the sacred clearing of Silver Ridge Pack. Red light spilled through the ancient oaks, painting everything the color of old wounds. Hundreds of wolves had gathered on the ceremonial grounds, their voices rising and falling like the tide. I stood at the edge of it all, trying to make myself small. My mother's dress hung loose on my frame, pale blue silk that had seen better decades. The hem was frayed. One sleeve had been mended so many times the stitching looked like a scar. But it was the only nice thing I owned, and tonight, every unmated female was required to wear her best. Even the defective ones. Even me. Elena Vance, the registry keeper, had announced when I arrived, his voice flat with disinterest. Wolfless. Age 23. Unclaimed. Unclaimed. Such a polite word for what I really was. Unwanted. I found a spot near the tree line, as far from the ceremonial circle as I could get without technically leaving. The other females clustered at the center, beautiful, powerful, their wolves shimmering just beneath their skin. They preened and posed as alphas circled them, scenting the air, making their selections. This was how it worked in our world. Males chose. Females waited. And every year, the unchosen ones had to stand there until dawn, a living reminder of their own inadequacy. 5 years. I'd endured 5 of these ceremonies. 5 years of watching alphas walk past me like I was furniture. 5 years of whispers and laughter and cruel jokes about the traitor's daughter who couldn't even shift. I pressed my back against an oak tree and counted the stars. 347 minutes until dawn. I could survive 347 minutes. A group of females nearby burst into giggles. I caught fragments of their conversation. Here she still works in the kitchens. Father was executed right there, on that platform. Honestly, why does she even come? I closed my eyes. Because it's mandatory, I wanted to scream. Because if I don't show up, they'll drag me here anyway, and that would be worse. But I said nothing. I'd learned years ago that my voice didn't matter. My father used to tell me I was special. Your wolf is just sleeping, little one, he'd say, tucking me into bed. One day she'll wake up, and she'll be the most magnificent wolf anyone has ever seen. I believed him. I was 8 years old and my father was the great Thomas Vance, advisor to the Alpha, keeper of ancient secrets. He knew everything. He would never lie to me. Then they arrested him for treason. I was 18 when they dragged him to the execution platform. 18 when they forced me to watch. 18 when his blood soaked into the same sacred ground I now stood on. They never told me what he did. Crimes against the pack, the Alpha had declared. Crimes against our very blood. My mother lasted 2 years after that. The alcohol took her slowly, then all at once. I found her one morning in her bed, cold and still, an empty bottle clutched in her hand. After the funeral, they moved me to the servants' quarters. The Vance estate was seized. Our assets were redistributed. Everything my family had built over generations, gone in a single season. And me? I became invisible. The wolfless daughter of a traitor. Not worth killing. Not worth acknowledging. Just, there. Scrubbing floors and washing dishes and pretending I couldn't hear the things they said about me. That was my life now. That was all my life would ever be. Well. Look who showed up. The voice slithered through the night air like poison. I opened my eyes. Derek Cross stood 10 feet away, his pack of friends flanking him like hyenas around a lion. He was everything an alpha heir should be, tall, golden-haired, brutally handsome. The kind of handsome that made you forget he had the soul of a snake. Until he opened his mouth. I thought for sure you'd skip this year, Elena. He took a step closer. Isn't it embarrassing? Standing here year after year while everyone pretends you don't exist? Don't react. Don't give him anything. I kept my face blank. It's mandatory. Ah, right. The rules. Derek grinned at his friends. Our little wolfless servant is very good at following rules, isn't she? Fetch this, carry that, clean up my mess. He tilted his head. Tell me, do you still cry at night? My mother says she hears you sometimes, whimpering in the servant's wing like a kicked dog. Laughter from his followers. A few nearby wolves turned to watch, drawn by the promise of entertainment. I said nothing. I'd learned that silence was the only shield I had. Derek circled me slowly. I felt his eyes crawling over my mother's old dress, cataloging every flaw, every sign of poverty and disgrace. I've always wondered, he said, pitching his voice to Carrie, what it would be like to mate something so broken. More laughter. Louder now. People were drifting closer, abandoning the central circle to witness my humiliation. Derek leaned in. His breath was hot against my ear, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for me. Your father died a traitor. Begged at the end, did you know that? Cried like a baby. His lips brushed my earlobe. Your mother drank herself to death because she couldn't stand the sight of you. And you? He pulled back. His smile was razor blades and broken glass. You're not worth the air you breathe. He walked away to cheers and applause from his friends. Someone clapped him on the shoulder. Someone else called him a legend. I stood frozen. Don't cry. Don't you dare cry. But my eyes burned anyway. 5 years of this. 5 years of swallowing my pain, my rage, my grief. 5 years of being nothing to everyone. I couldn't do it anymore. I turned and walked toward the trees. Not running, I wouldn't give them the satisfaction, but fast. Fast enough that the tears could fall without anyone seeing. I made it 3 steps. A hand closed around my wrist. The grip was iron, strong enough to stop me dead but not painful. And the scent. My breath caught. Every wolf had a scent. Pack wolves smelled like pine and hearth smoke and belonging. Rogues smelled like wilderness and loneliness and danger. This scent was something else entirely. Dark forests and thunderstorms and blood. Power so thick it pressed against my skin like a physical weight. And underneath all of it, something ancient. Something that made every instinct I had, wolf or no wolf, stand at attention. Don't run, a deep voice said from behind me. Act like you're mine. I turned. He was tall, taller than Derek, taller than any alpha I'd ever seen. His shoulders were broad enough to block out the blood moon. Dark hair fell across his forehead, tangled and wild. A thick scar ran from his left eyebrow to his jaw, twisting his face into something savage. But his eyes. His eyes were the color of molten gold. Wolf's eyes. Alpha's eyes. They pinned me in place, seeing everything, demanding everything. I knew those eyes. Everyone did. Kade Thornton. The rogue alpha. The father killer. The most wanted wolf in 3 territories. 5 years ago, he'd murdered his own father, the great alpha Marcus Thornton, and fled into the Deadlands. There was a bounty on his head large enough to buy a small country. Hunters had been tracking him for years. And he was standing in the middle of our sacred ceremony, holding my wrist like he owned me. What? My voice cracked. What are you doing? His golden eyes never left mine. Saving you, he said quietly. Now smile like you mean it. The clearing had gone dead silent. Every wolf was staring. Derek's face had turned the color of old milk. Even the elders looked frozen in shock. Kade Thornton. Here. Touching the traitor's daughter. Acting like I was his. I should have screamed. Should have pulled away, called for help, done something. Instead, I looked up into the scarred face of a monster, and saw something I hadn't seen in 5 years. Someone looking at me like I mattered. Like I was worth saving. Okay, I whispered. And I smiled. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 2. The silence lasted exactly 4 heartbeats. I know because I counted them, each one slamming against my ribs like a fist. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the world exploded. Kade Thornton, someone gasped. It's Kade Thornton. The father killer. How is he here? Someone call the enforcers. The whispers became shouts, became a roar of voices crashing over each other like waves in a storm. Wolves scrambled backward, putting distance between themselves and the scarred man who still held my wrist. Mothers grabbed their daughters. Elders clutched at their chests. The beautiful females who'd been preening at the center of the circle moments ago now cowered behind their families. And through it all, Kade Thornton didn't move. He stood like a mountain, immovable, unshakable, utterly unconcerned by the chaos erupting around him. His golden eyes stayed fixed on mine, and his grip on my wrist remained steady. Not painful. Just present. Like an anchor in a hurricane. Breathe, he said quietly. And keep smiling. I realized I'd stopped doing both. I forced air into my lungs. Forced the corners of my mouth upward. It probably looked more like a grimace than a smile, but it was the best I could manage when my heart was trying to beat its way out of my chest. 5 years. Kade Thornton had been gone for 5 years. The night he'd killed his father was still whispered about around fires, used to scare children into obedience. Be good, or the father killer will come for you. And now he was here. Touching me. In front of everyone. I was either about to be rescued or murdered, and I genuinely couldn't tell which. Derek recovered faster than the others. You, he snarled, shoving through the frozen crowd. 4 of his enforcers flanked him, big, brutal wolves with more muscle than sense. You're not welcome here, rogue. Kade's head turned slowly. The movement reminded me of a predator tracking prey, lazy, confident, almost bored. Derek Cross. His voice was a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the ground. You've grown. Still running your mouth, I see. Derek's face flushed crimson. They'd known each other, I realized. Before. When Kade was still the heir to the Thornton pack, still destined for greatness instead of infamy. Release the girl, Derek spat. Now. No. The single word hung in the air like a blade. Derek's enforcers shifted, hands curling into fists. The crowd pressed closer, drawn by the promise of violence despite their fear. She belongs to Silver Ridge, Derek said. You have no right. She belongs to no one. Kade's thumb brushed across my pulse point, and I shivered despite myself. But if you want to get technical about it, I'm claiming her. The gasp that swept through the crowd was loud enough to rustle the leaves overhead. A rogue claiming a pack female. It violated every law we had. Every tradition. A rogue was an outcast, a lone wolf severed from the bonds of pack and territory. They had no rights. No standing. No ability to participate in sacred ceremonies. What Kade was doing was impossible. And yet. You can't, Derek breathed. You don't have the authority. I'm an alpha. Kade's smile was razor sharp, all teeth and danger. That's all the authority I need. He tilted his head, that predator gaze sweeping across Derek's enforcers. Unless your pack wants to challenge me for her? Nobody moved. I watched the calculation happen in real time, watched Derek's enforcers glance at each other, watched them remember the stories. Kade Thornton had killed his own father. Alpha Marcus Thornton, one of the most powerful wolves of his generation, torn apart with bare hands. If he could do that to his father, what would he do to them? Derek's jaw worked. His hands shook with barely contained rage. But even he wasn't stupid enough to challenge a wolf who'd committed patricide and lived to tell about it. "Father," he called over his shoulder. "Father, are you going to allow this?" The crowd parted. Alpha Randall Cross walked forward with the slow, deliberate pace of a man who owned everything he surveyed. He was older than I remembered, more gray in his hair, more lines on his face, but his eyes were the same. Cold. Calculating. The eyes of a snake deciding whether you were worth the effort of killing. He stopped a few feet from us, studying Kade with an expression I couldn't read. "Thornton," he said. "I'd heard rumors you were dead." Disappointed? Curious. Randall's gaze flicked to me, then back to Kade. "You've come back for the traitor's daughter? Interesting choice." "I've come back for what's mine." "She's not yours. She's never been anyone's." "That's rather the point of her, isn't it?" Randall's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "A wolfless female. No family. No prospects. No value whatsoever." He waved a dismissive hand. "Take her, if you want her so badly. She's no loss to us." The words shouldn't have hurt. I'd heard worse. I'd heard him say worse, in the 5 years since he'd signed my father's death warrant. But something about the casual cruelty of it, "she's no loss to us," sliced deeper than Derek's taunts ever had. I was nothing. Not even worth fighting over. Kade's grip on my wrist tightened almost imperceptibly. "Then we have an understanding." "We have nothing." Randall's cold eyes narrowed. "Take the girl and go. If I see you in my territory again, the bounty on your head will be the least of your concerns." For a long moment, nobody moved. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. Then Kade inclined his head, not a bow, not quite, but an acknowledgement of some kind, and turned away. "Come," he said to me. "We're leaving." He started walking toward the tree line, and I had no choice but to follow. His hand had slid from my wrist to my fingers, our palms pressed together like we really were mates heading home after a ceremony. I didn't look back. I couldn't bear to see Derek's smirk, or Randall's dismissal, or the relief on every face as the defective girl finally left. The forest swallowed us whole. I lasted about 200 yards before I yanked my hand free. "Stop." My voice came out shaky. I hated that. "Just stop." Kade halted but didn't turn around. The moonlight filtering through the canopy caught the edges of his scar, making him look like something out of a nightmare. "We need to keep moving," he said. "They might change their minds about letting us go." "I don't care." I pressed my back against a tree, my legs threatening to give out beneath me. "I'm not going another step until you tell me what the hell just happened." Silence stretched between us. An owl hooted somewhere in the darkness. The distant sounds of the ceremony had faded to nothing. Finally, Kade turned. Up close, away from the crowd and the chaos, he was somehow even more intimidating. The scar wasn't his only mark, I could see others now, peeking out from the collar of his worn leather jacket. A life written in violence and survival. "What happened," he said slowly, "is that I just saved you from a lifetime of servitude to people who see you as less than dirt." "Why? Why what? Why save me? You don't know me. I'm nothing to you. I'm nothing to anyone." The words tasted bitter on my tongue. Why would the great Kade Thornton, the father killer, the most wanted wolf in 3 territories, waste his time on a wolfless servant girl? Something flickered across his face. Too fast to identify. "Because I need something," he said. "And you're going to help me get it." I laughed. I couldn't help it, the sound scraped out of my throat, harsh and humorless. Of course. Of course there's a catch." I shook my head. "What could I possibly have that you need?" "A mate." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Not a real one." Kade's jaw tightened. "A fake one. Someone to play the part for a few weeks." Play the part for who? The wolves who control the deadlands. He started pacing, restless energy radiating off him in waves. There's something there I need to retrieve. But the hollow pack won't deal with an unmated alpha. They think we're unstable. Dangerous. His lips twisted. They're not entirely wrong. I stared at him. So you need a prop. A fake mate to make you seem, what? Domesticated? Something like that. And you chose me because? Because no one will come looking for you. The words were blunt. Brutal. True. No family. No pack bonds. No one who gives a damn whether you live or die. His golden eyes met mine. You're perfect. I should have been insulted. Part of me was. But a larger part, the part that had spent 5 years scrubbing floors and swallowing abuse, recognized the truth in what he was saying. No one would come looking for me. No one ever had. What do I get out of it? I asked. Freedom. Kade stopped pacing. 2 weeks. You play my mate, I get what I need, and then I take you anywhere you want to go. Another territory. Another country. Anywhere that isn't here. He paused. You'd never have to see Silver Ridge again. Never see Silver Ridge again. Never scrub another floor. Never endure another ceremony. Never hear Derek's voice or feel Randall's cold gaze or sleep in that tiny servant's room that still smelled like my mother's grief. I could disappear. Start over. Become someone new. All I had to do was trust a killer. 2 weeks, I said slowly. And you don't touch me. Not unless absolutely necessary. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe. Possibly respect. Deal, he said. We stood there in the darkness, 2 broken people making a bargain neither of us fully understood. The blood moon had started to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and gray. I pushed off the tree and started walking in the direction Kade had been heading. Well? Are we going or not? He fell into step beside me, and we moved deeper into the forest. That's when it happened. A warmth bloomed in my chest, sudden and startling, like someone had lit a match behind my ribs. I gasped, stumbling, my hand flying to press against my heart. Kade stopped instantly. His nostrils flared. His whole body went rigid. What? I could barely get the words out. The warmth was spreading, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. What's happening to me? He didn't answer. He was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before, not on him, not on anyone. Like the ground had just shifted beneath his feet. Like everything he thought he knew had just been proven wrong. That's not possible, he breathed. What isn't? The warmth flared again, and I doubled over. Kade, what the hell is happening? Still no answer. But when I looked up, gasping, the way he was looking at me had changed completely. I wasn't a convenient arrangement anymore. I wasn't a prop or a tool or a means to an end. I was something else entirely. Something that terrified him. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 3. 3 days. 3 days of walking through territory that had never known pack law. 3 days of sleeping on cold ground and eating whatever Kade managed to hunt. 3 days of silence so thick I could choke on it. And 3 days of pretending I didn't feel the thing growing inside my chest. The forests had changed as we traveled north. The familiar pines of Silver Ridge had given way to twisted oaks and skeletal birches, their branches reaching toward the sky like the fingers of drowning men. No birds sang here. No squirrels chattered. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. We should stop soon, Kade said. His voice still startled me every time he used it. He spoke so rarely that each word felt like a gift. Or a warning. There's a cave system about a mile ahead. We can rest there until nightfall. I nodded, too tired to argue. My feet had blistered on the first day and burst on the second. Now they were just numb, which was probably a mercy. Kade glanced back at me. Something flickered across his face, concern, maybe, but it was gone before I could be sure. Here. He shrugged off his leather jacket and held it out to me. The temperature's dropping. I'm fine. You're shivering. I opened my mouth to argue, but my teeth chose that exact moment to chatter. Traitors. Kade's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Take the jacket, Elena. I took the jacket. It smelled like him, that wild, dangerous scent I'd first noticed at the ceremony. Dark forests and thunderstorms and something underneath that I couldn't name. I pulled it tight around my shoulders and tried not to think about how warm it was. How safe it made me feel. This was a business arrangement. Nothing more. I'd learned to read Kade's silences over the past 3 days. There was the focused silence when he was hunting, his body coiled tight with predatory stillness. The wary silence when we passed through territories that might hold other rogues. The heavy silence that fell over him at night, when he stared into the fire like he was seeing ghosts. He wasn't cruel. I'd been bracing myself for cruelty, for the monster the stories had promised, but it never came. He hunted for both of us without being asked. He found sheltered spots for us to sleep and always took the position closest to danger. He kept his distance, never touching me except when absolutely necessary. But I caught him watching me. Late at night, when I was supposed to be asleep, I'd feel the weight of his gaze. I'd crack my eyes open just enough to see him across the dying fire, those golden eyes fixed on me with an expression I couldn't decipher. He never looked away when I caught him. Just held my gaze for a long moment before turning back to the darkness. I didn't know what it meant. I wasn't sure I wanted to. The warmth in my chest had grown stronger. What had started as a flutter, a match being struck, had become something else entirely. A pulse. A presence. Sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, I could swear I felt something moving beneath my skin. Like a second heartbeat trying to synchronize with my own. Like something waking up. I didn't tell Kade. Every time the warmth flared, every time that strange presence stirred, I saw the look on his face from that first night. The shock. The fear. That's not possible, he'd said. Whatever was happening to me, it scared him. And if it scared a man who'd killed his own father, I wasn't sure I wanted to know what it was. So I stayed quiet. Pressed my hand to my chest when the pulse came and breathed through it until it faded. Pretended everything was normal. Pretended I wasn't terrified. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, the forest died. One moment we were walking through twisted trees. The next, we stepped out onto a ridge and I stopped breathing. The deadland stretched before us like a wound in the earth. Nothing grew here. Nothing moved. The ground was cracked and gray, scattered with the bones of trees that had died centuries ago. A permanent haze hung over everything, turning the sky the color of old bruises. And in the center of it all, rising from the wasteland like a black tooth. A fortress. It was carved directly into a mountain of dark stone, its walls smooth and featureless except for narrow slits that might have been windows. No flags flew from its towers. No guards patrolled its walls. It looked less like a building and more like a tomb. The hollow pack, Kade said quietly. We're here. I swallowed hard. They live in that? They don't really live at all. He started down the ridge, and I had no choice but to follow. The hollow pack severed their mate bonds generations ago. Cut themselves off from the warmth that connects us to each other. His jaw tightened. They exist in eternal cold. No love. No loyalty. No feeling at all. Why would anyone choose that? Because feelings can destroy you. His voice was flat. They decided it was better to feel nothing than to risk feeling too much. I thought about my mother. About the grief that had hollowed her out from the inside, turned her into a ghost long before she actually died. Maybe the hollow pack had a point. The fortress gates opened before we reached them. No guards. No announcement. Just a grinding of ancient stone and a darkness that seemed to breathe. Kade took my hand. I flinched. We'd barely touched in 3 days, but his grip was firm and warm and strangely reassuring. "Stay close," he murmured. "Don't show fear. And whatever happens, don't let go of me." "What's going to happen?" He didn't answer. We walked into the darkness together. The inside of the fortress was worse than the outside. Cold stone corridors stretched endlessly in every direction, lit by torches that burned with pale blue flames. The air was frigid, colder than the mountain passes we'd crossed, colder than anything I'd ever felt. My breath came out in white clouds that hung in the air like ghosts. And the wolves. They stood along the walls, motionless as statues. Men and women with gray skin and empty eyes, watching us pass with expressions of absolute nothing. No curiosity. No hostility. No anything at all. Looking at them made me want to scream. Kade's hand tightened around mine. Almost there. The corridor opened into a vast hall. More of the hollow wolves lined the walls, but my attention went immediately to the figure on the throne. She was tall and thin, gaunt, really, like something had eaten her from the inside out. Her hair was white and hung past her waist in tangled ropes. Her skin was the gray of old ash. And her eyes. Her eyes were completely dead. Not cold, not cruel. Just empty. Windows into absolute nothing. "The Thornton boy returns," she said. Her voice echoed through the hall like wind through a graveyard. "I wondered when you'd come crawling back." Kade released my hand and stepped forward. "Alpha Seraph. You're looking, well. I'm looking like exactly what I am." Her dead eyes slid to me, and I felt the cold deepen. "And you've brought a mate." "How, unexpected." "My business hasn't changed. My father's possessions are in your vault. I want them." "Yes, I remember our arrangement." Seraph rose from her throne with fluid grace. "But circumstances have changed. The price has increased." "Name it." Seraph walked down the steps of her throne, each footfall echoing in the silence. She stopped directly in front of me, and up close, the emptiness in her eyes was even more terrifying. She said simply. "One night. My wolves are hungry for warmth." I felt the blood drain from my face. Kade had gone utterly still beside me. "We don't feel anything ourselves," Seraph continued, circling me like a vulture. "But we can still feed on the feelings of others. Fear. Passion. Pain." Her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Your mate is brimming with all three. One night with my pack, and we'll feast for months." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The warmth in my chest flared violently, as if in protest. "Kade," I whispered. "Kade, please." He moved. I didn't see it. 1 second he was beside me, the next he had Seraph by the throat, lifted off the ground like she weighed nothing. His eyes blazed gold, not just golden brown but actually glowing, full alpha, full beast. Power radiated off him in waves so strong they made my knees buckle. "She is mine." The words thundered through the hall. The walls shook. The blue torches flickered and flared. And every hollow wolf in the room dropped to their knees. The warmth in my chest exploded. Heat flooded my body, not the gentle warmth I'd been feeling for days but a tidal wave, a wildfire, an inferno that started in my heart and spread to every nerve ending. I gasped, clutching at my chest, and beneath my hand I felt something move. Something uncurl. Something that had been sleeping for 23 years finally opened its eyes. "Hello," something whispered inside me. "I've been waiting for you." Seraph laughed. Even dangling from Kade's hand, even with his claws pricking her throat, she laughed. The sound was hollow, of course it was, but there was something underneath it. Something that might have been surprise. Kade dropped her. She landed on her feet, rubbing her throat, that empty smile still playing on her lips. Interesting, she said. You didn't know. Know what? My voice came out hoarse. The heat was still pulsing through me, that presence stirring restlessly in my chest. What's happening to me? Saratha's dead eyes actually glittered. Your wolf isn't absent, girl. She was sealed. Bound by someone with very old magic. She tilted her head, studying me like I was a particularly fascinating specimen. And she's waking up. The world tilted. My wolf. I had a wolf. She'd been there all along, trapped, locked away, and now. Who? Kade's voice was barely recognizable. Who sealed her? How should I know? Sarath spread her hands. But the magic is ancient. Older than my pack. Older than your father's precious bloodline. Her smile widened. Older than almost everything. Kade turned to me. His face was pale beneath the scar, his golden eyes burning with something I couldn't name. Who sealed your wolf? He asked quietly. Elena, think. Did your father ever? I don't know. My voice cracked. I didn't even know it was possible. It's possible. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. It's been done once before. To the daughter of the true Alpha bloodline. The one that's supposed to be extinct. The true Alpha bloodline. I'd heard the stories. Everyone had. A bloodline so pure, so powerful, that their wolves could command any other wolf without question. They'd ruled for centuries, until a mysterious illness wiped them out 3 generations ago. Except my father, I breathed. He wasn't executed for treason. He was executed to hide something. To hide me. Kade nodded slowly. His eyes never left mine. You're not a disgraced Omega, Elena. You're the last heir to the oldest Alpha bloodline in existence. He swallowed hard. And someone wanted you buried so deep you'd never know. The fortress shuddered. The blue torches flickered wildly. Saratha's head snapped toward the entrance, her dead eyes narrowing. Well, she said calmly. It seems we have visitors. Alarms began to blare, a deep, resonant howl that echoed through the stone corridors. They found us. Kade grabbed my hand, pulling me toward a side passage. Silver Ridge. They've sent hunters. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 4. The first hunter came through the fortress gates with blood already on his teeth. I saw him for only a second, a blur of gray fur and snapping jaws, before Kade shoved me behind a pillar and the world dissolved into chaos. More wolves poured through the entrance. 24 at least, their howls echoing off the black stone walls like thunder. They crashed into the hollow wolves who had been kneeling moments before, and suddenly the great hall became a battlefield. Teeth flashed. Blood sprayed. The hollow wolves fought with mechanical precision, no fear in their empty eyes, but the Silver Ridge hunters fought with something worse. Purpose. Elena. Kade grabbed my arm, pulling me toward a side corridor. The vault. Now. But. Now. We ran. The corridors twisted and turned, a maze of black stone that all looked the same. Behind us, the sounds of fighting grew louder, then softer, then louder again as the battle spread through the fortress. Kade moved with the certainty of someone who'd been here before, dragging me around corners and through doorways I barely registered. My heart pounded. The warmth in my chest, my wolf, I realized now, my wolf who had been sleeping for 23 years, thrashed against its bonds like a caged animal. Soon, she seemed to whisper. Soon. How did they find us? I gasped. Doesn't matter. Kade skidded to a stop in front of a massive iron door, its surface covered in symbols I didn't recognize. What matters is what they came for. The journal? No. His golden eyes met mine. You. He pressed his palm against the door. The symbols flared bright blue, then faded. The door groaned open. The vault was smaller than I expected. A circular room, maybe 20 feet across, with walls of smooth black stone. No treasure. No weapons. No ancient artifacts. Just a single pedestal in the center, and on it, a leather journal so old and worn it looked like it might crumble at a touch. Kade crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed it. "My father's research," he said, his voice rough. "He spent years investigating the true Alpha bloodline. Where they came from. Why they died out." He turned to face me, the journal clutched to his chest. "And who was responsible?" Responsible? The word felt thick in my mouth. I thought it was an illness. A plague that. A lie. Kade's jaw tightened. There was no plague. The true Alphas were hunted. Systematically exterminated by wolves who feared their power. He held up the journal. "My father discovered the truth. That's why he was really killed." The world tilted beneath my feet. "But, everyone says you killed him." "That you." "I didn't kill my father, Elena." The words hung in the air between us. Kade's face was a mask of old pain, old grief, old rage held carefully in check. "I came home that night and found his body," he said quietly. "Torn apart. Made to look like an Alpha challenge gone wrong." His voice cracked. "I was 18 years old, covered in my father's blood, and when the enforcers arrived, they didn't ask questions. They didn't investigate. They just knew." "Knew what?" "That I was supposed to take the blame." His golden eyes burned. "Randall Cross murdered my father and framed me for it. And I've spent 5 years hunting for proof." He held up the journal again. "This is it. This proves everything. Randall orchestrated your father's execution. My father's murder. The systematic destruction of everyone who knew about the true Alpha bloodline." His voice dropped. "All to steal power that was never his." I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Everything I'd believed for 5 years, that my father was a traitor, that Kade was a monster, that I was broken and worthless. Lies. All of it lies. "We have to go." Kade tucked the journal inside his jacket. "We have to get this to the council. If they see the evidence." "Going somewhere?" The voice came from the doorway. Derek Cross stood at the entrance to the vault, 2 hunters flanking him. His clothes were torn and bloodied, his golden hair matted with sweat. But his eyes were wild with hate. "You should have stayed forgotten," he snarled at me. "Both of you. My father gave your families mercy, a quick death. But you had to survive." He stepped into the vault, and his hunters followed. "You had to keep breathing." Kade moved in front of me, putting himself between Derek and me. "Your father is a murderer and a coward. When the council sees this journal, the council will see nothing." Derek's smile was all teeth. "Because you'll be dead, the journal will be ash, and the wolfless girl will finally stop being a problem." "Your father murdered innocent people to steal power," I said. The words came out steady. Calm. My voice didn't shake, even though everything inside me was trembling. Derek's eyes snapped to me, and something ugly flickered across his face. "Power belongs to those who take it." He lunged. Kade intercepted him. The 2 Alphas collided with a sound like thunder, shifting mid-air into massive wolves. Derek was golden brown and snarling. Kade was black as midnight, his scarred face even more terrifying in wolf form. They tore into each other with savage fury. I pressed myself against the vault wall, my heart hammering, my wolf thrashing desperately inside my chest. I wanted to help. Wanted to do something. But I was human, small and weak and useless. Just like I'd always been. Kade was stronger. I could see it in the way he moved, the way he drove Derek back with every strike. But Derek had backup. His 2 hunters circled around the fighting Alphas. They shifted, smaller than the Alphas but still deadly, and I realized too late what they were doing. Kade. I screamed. Behind you. Too late. The hunters hit Kade from both sides, slamming him to the ground. Derek was on him in an instant, his jaws clamping around Kade's throat. Not killing, not yet, just holding. Pinning. One of the hunters shifted back to human form and drew a silver blade from his belt. It gleamed in the blue torchlight, hungry and cold. Hold him still, Derek growled through the mind link that all shifted wolves shared. I want to watch the light leave his eyes. Kade struggled, but the two hunters had his legs pinned. He couldn't move. Couldn't shift. Couldn't do anything but watch as Derek raised his head and bared his teeth in triumph. The hunter with the silver blade stepped forward. Something inside me snapped. The pulse in my chest detonated. Pain ripped through my body, not the gentle warmth I'd been feeling for days but an explosion, a wildfire, a bomb going off in my bones. I heard myself scream, but the sound twisted halfway through, becoming something else. Becoming a howl. My bones cracked. Reformed. Cracked again. My skin split and fur pushed through, white fur, pure as snow. My hands became paws. My teeth became fangs. My spine curved and stretched and I was falling. And then I was standing. On 4 legs. Looking down at wolves who suddenly seemed very, very small. I was massive. Larger than any female wolf had a right to be, larger than Derek, larger than Kade, larger than any wolf I'd ever seen. Power radiated from me in waves so strong they made the torches flicker. And inside my chest, my wolf, finally free, threw back her head and roared. Mine, she said. They threatened what is mine. Derek stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock. The hunters released Kade, scrambling away from me like I was death incarnate. Impossible, Derek breathed, shifting back to human form. His face was pale as milk. You're wolfless. You can't, you don't. I didn't think. I attacked. I don't remember most of it. Just flashes. Impressions. The feel of Derek's shoulder under my jaws. The spray of hot blood. The sound of his scream cutting off mid-breath. The hunters running, fleeing, abandoning their alpha to the monster they'd helped create. And underneath it all, my wolf. Singing with savage joy. This is what we are, she said. This is what they tried to bury. This is what they feared. When the red haze finally cleared, I was standing in the center of the vault. Derek Cross was on the ground beneath me. His throat was a ruin of torn flesh and shattered bone. His eyes stared at nothing. Dead. I'd killed him. And I didn't feel anything except a bone-deep satisfaction that scared me more than the blood on my muzzle. Slowly, painfully, I shifted back. Human again. Naked. Shaking. Covered in blood that wasn't mine. I looked down at my hands, my human hands, and watched them tremble. Elena. Kade's voice. I looked up. He was standing a few feet away, human again, his clothes torn and his face bloody. But he wasn't looking at me like I was a monster. Wasn't looking at me like I was broken or defective or worthless. He was looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Mate, he whispered. The word hit me like a physical blow. I felt something in my chest, not my wolf this time but something deeper, something older, reach out toward him. A thread of pure golden light, connecting my heart to his. The bond. It snapped into place like a key turning in a lock. Like a door opening after 23 years of being sealed shut. He was mine. I was his. It had never been fake. Kade, I breathed. Pain exploded through my shoulder. I looked down, confused, and saw the arrow. Silver. Embedded deep in my flesh, burning like acid. My legs gave out. Kade caught me, lowering me to the ground, his face twisted with horror. No. No, no, no. I turned my head. Alpha Randall Cross stood at the vault entrance, a crossbow in his hands. His cold eyes swept over his son's body without a flicker of emotion, then settled on me. I killed your bloodline once, he said calmly. I'll do it again. He raised the crossbow. The world went gray at the edges. Then black. The last thing I heard was Kade screaming my name. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 5. I woke to the smell of blood and silver. My blood. My silver. The shackles burned against my wrists like brands, sending waves of agony up my arms with every heartbeat. I was hanging from chains bolted to a stone ceiling, my toes barely brushing the floor. The cell around me was small and dark, lit only by a single torch guttering in its bracket. The dungeons. I was in the dungeons beneath the Silver Ridge packhouse. I'd scrubbed these floors 100 times. Carried meals to the guards. Pretended not to hear the screams that sometimes echoed up through the stone. Now I was the one in chains. My wolf thrashed inside me, fully awake now, raging against the silver suppression. She was a wildfire trapped in a cage of ice, and every moment the shackles touched my skin, I felt her weakening. Fight, she snarled. Break free. Kill them all. I couldn't. The silver was doing its job, draining my strength, suppressing my shift, turning me back into the nothing I'd been for 23 years. A door opened. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor. The torch flickered as a shadow passed in front of it, and then Randall Cross stepped into my cell. He looked the same as he had at the ceremony. Cold eyes. Calculating smile. The quiet confidence of a man who had never faced a consequence in his life. You're awake, he said. Good. I wanted you conscious for this. I said nothing. My throat was raw, from screaming, I realized. I didn't remember screaming. Randall circled me slowly, his footsteps deliberate, his gaze assessing. 23 years, he said. 23 years I've worked to erase your bloodline. First your grandparents. Then your aunts and uncles, your cousins, anyone with even a drop of true alpha blood. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell the tobacco on his breath. Your father was the last real threat. The keeper of the old knowledge. The one who might have found a way to undo what I'd done. So you killed him. I executed a traitor. Randall's smile was thin as a razor. That's what the records show. That's what everyone believes. He wasn't a traitor. Of course he wasn't. He was a good man. A devoted father. Something ugly flickered in Randall's eyes. He begged, you know. At the end. Begged me to spare you. Said you were innocent. Said you didn't know anything about the bloodline or the power or any of it. My heart clenched. My father. Begging for my life. And you didn't spare me. I did worse. Randall leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. I let you live as nothing. Wolfless. Powerless. Invisible. His smile widened. It was more satisfying than killing you. I wanted to spit in his face. Wanted to tear his throat out with my bare hands. But the silver held me fast, and all I could do was hang there, helpless. Where's Kade? The rogue? Randall stepped back, adjusting his cuffs. He's scheduled for execution at dawn. For the murder of my son. He paused, letting the words sink in. You'll watch, of course. And then you'll die. Slowly, I think. I want to savor it. He turned and walked to the cell door. Rest well, Elena. Tomorrow is going to be a very long day. The door slammed shut behind him. I don't know how long I hung there. Minutes. Hours. The pain in my wrists had faded to a dull throb, which probably meant the nerves were dying. My wolf had gone quiet, conserving her strength, waiting. For what? I didn't know. There was no escape. No rescue coming. Kade was in chains somewhere nearby, and in a few hours, we'd both be dead. 23 years of being nothing, and this was how it ended. The shadows in the corner of my cell shifted. I blinked, certain I was hallucinating. But no, the darkness was moving, coalescing, taking shape. A figure stepped out of nothing, and I found myself staring into the dead eyes of Alpha Seraph. "You," I breathed. "Me." She glided closer, her white hair floating around her like smoke. "The old alliances hold, daughter of the true blood. Your ancestors showed mercy to my people when no one else would. We do not forget." "I don't understand." "You don't need to." She reached out and took my hand. Her touch was ice cold, empty of any warmth, and pressed something into my palm. "The rogue is 3 cells down. Dawn is in 2 hours." I looked at the object in my hand. A key. Silver, but different somehow, treated with something that kept it from burning my skin. "Don't waste your gift," Seraph said. "We are even now." She stepped back into the shadows and vanished like she'd never been there at all. The key fit the shackles perfectly. I dropped to the ground, my legs nearly buckling beneath me. The silver had done its damage. I was weak, shaky, barely able to stand. But my wolf was already stirring, feeding me strength I didn't have. 3 cells down, she reminded me. Our mate is 3 cells down. I moved. The corridor was dark and empty, no guards, which seemed wrong until I passed the first checkpoint and saw the bodies. 2 Silver Ridge wolves, throats torn out, their blood still warm on the stone floor. Saratha's work. She'd cleared the path. I found Kade in the 3rd cell, just like she'd said. He was chained to the wall like I had been, his head hanging, his body covered in bruises and cuts. They'd beaten him. Badly. Kade. His head snapped up. For a moment, he just stared at me, like he was seeing a ghost. Then his eyes lit up. "You came. You're my mate." I fumbled with the key, my hands shaking. Of course I came. The shackles fell away. Kade slumped forward, and I caught him, staggering under his weight. He was bigger than me, heavier, but I held on. "Can you walk?" I asked. "Can you?" I laughed. It came out cracked and broken. "Let's find out together." We fought our way through the dungeons. Kade's brutal strength. My newly awakened power. We weren't graceful. I was still learning to control my wolf, and Kade was half dead from the beatings, but we were relentless. Guards came. We put them down. More guards came. We put them down too. My wolf guided me through it, showing me how to move, how to strike, how to use the power that had been sleeping inside me for 23 years. Every time I shifted, it got easier. Every time I fought, I got stronger. By the time we reached the packhouse courtyard, the sun was just starting to rise. The entire Silver Ridge pack had assembled. Hundreds of wolves, gathered in the pre-dawn light. They'd come to watch an execution, Kade's execution, but instead they found us. Bloody. Battered. Very much alive. And me. I shifted in the center of the courtyard, let them see me, all of me. The white wolf. The true alpha. The monster their alpha had tried to bury. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers of impossible and can't be, and the bloodline still lives. I shifted back. Kade pressed something into my hand. The journal. My father's journal, I called out, holding it high. My voice carried across the courtyard, strong and clear. It contains Alpha Marcus Thornton's evidence. Proof that Randall Cross murdered him. Murdered my father. Orchestrated the extinction of the true Alpha bloodline to steal power that was never his. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Wolves exchanged glances. Elders leaned in to whisper to each other. Lies. Randall's voice cut through the noise. He strode forward, his face twisted with rage. She's a rogue's whore. Nothing more. Don't listen to her lies. Then challenge me. The words came out calm. Steady. I felt my wolf rise up inside me, felt her power flooding through my veins. If I'm nothing, I said, defeat me. Prove your right to rule. Silence. Every wolf in the courtyard knew the law. An alpha couldn't refuse a direct challenge without forfeiting their position. It was the oldest rule they had, the foundation of everything their society was built on. Randall's face went pale. Then red. Then pale again. You dare. I dare. I stepped forward, letting my wolf bleed into my eyes, letting them see the gold that marked me as something more than human. Accept the challenge, Randall. Unless you're afraid. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then Randall shifted. He was massive in wolf form, gray and scarred, his body marked by decades of brutal rule. He bared his teeth and snarled, power radiating from him in waves. I shifted to meet him. The battle was not long. Randall was experienced. He'd fought 100 challenges, killed a dozen rivals, maintained his grip on power through sheer brutality. But I had something he didn't. The pure, undiluted power of the true alpha bloodline. It sang in my blood. Guided my movements. Made me faster than I should be, stronger than I had any right to be. Every time Randall lunged, I was already gone. Every time he snapped at my throat, I was somewhere else. I wasn't fighting him. I was dismantling him. Within minutes, I had him pinned. My jaws closed around his throat, not crushing, not yet, but holding. One twitch and I could end him. Yield, I growled through the bond all wolves shared. Yield, and I'll let you live to stand trial. For a moment, I felt his defiance. His rage. His absolute refusal to surrender to the daughter of the man he'd murdered. Then his body went limp beneath me. He yielded. The pack elders reviewed the journal's evidence. It took 3 days. 3 days of testimonies and examinations and heated debates behind closed doors. But in the end, the truth was undeniable. Randall Cross was condemned. Not to death, I wouldn't give him the mercy of a quick ending. Instead, they stripped him of his wolf. Severed the bond through an ancient and agonizing ritual that left him howling in pain. Then they exiled him. Wolfless. Powerless. Invisible. Just like he'd made me. Kade was cleared of his father's murder. His name was restored. The bounty was lifted. For the first time in 5 years, he could walk free without looking over his shoulder. And me? I stood before the pack that had tormented me, and I told them the truth. I don't want to rule you, I said. My voice echoed across the courtyard where I'd been humiliated, where I'd killed Derek, where I'd fought for my life. I didn't want any of this. I just wanted to be seen. I looked at Kade. He took my hand. Silver Ridge needs a new alpha, I continued. Choose one. Choose well. But remember what Randall's rule cost you, and never let fear make you blind again. 1 month later. Elena and Kade stood at the edge of the Deadlands. Behind them, Silver Ridge was beginning again, new leadership, new hope, a pack slowly learning to heal from wounds they hadn't even known they carried. Ahead, the wild territory stretched to the horizon. Mountains and forests and places where no pack law had ever reached. Where do you want to go? Kade asked. I looked at him. My mate. My partner. The man who had saved me and been saved by me in return. I smiled. A real smile. Full and free. Everywhere. He pulled me close. Kissed my forehead. My cheeks. My lips. Then everywhere it is, mate. We shifted together, one white wolf, one black, and ran into the unknown. Together. I know you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos like this, do well to hit the like button this video and subscribe to this channel. Also drop your thoughts in the comments section and share this video to family and friends. The end.